We're grateful for the opportunity you've given us to analyze your company, and so we're excited to present our recommendations to you. So our agenda will go as follows. I will present a brief executive summary of our recommendations, and then a brief overview of the context of the situation. Christina and Emily will both take some of the analysis, and then Reese will wrap it up with our detailed recommendation for you. So, given the information in the case, we felt that Autoliv should rethink or should adjust its fulfillment operations with Nissan on a trial run basis. So, given that, that dual fulfillment trial run should be, let's see, so it should be for these SKUs here, the driver and passenger airbags, having Nissan pick them up in Ogden and ship them to the Canton and Smyrna facilities. And then, after seeing how it works, in 4 years, when the contract with Olive Branch runs out, rethinking the shipping strategy for the remaining SKUs and getting back together with Nissan, forming another Kaizen event, and thinking about it again. So, as a brief background to this, just wanted to point out that Autoliv's values are centered around good supplier relationships and maintaining lean systems and helping the suppliers maintain that and develop good lean systems. Autoliv also works for a cause, to save lives, and I just wanted to point out that 30,000 lives saved per year is something to be honored and commended for. I think that is something great that Autoliv does. Now, with that in the context, the problem that Autoliv faces right now is the upcoming Thanks event with Nissan. Nissan wants another Kaizen event. They want to lean up their systems. They want to lean up the shipping that is happening to their Canton and Smyrna facilities. As a part of that, the main point of this is to find a more efficient way to ship to Nissan. So we have determined 4 alternatives, or 4 choices that Autoliv has in this situation. And if you could keep it on the map for just a second. The first one is to maintain the current process of shipping directly to Olive Branch, and then letting Nissan come pick up to their Smyrna and the Canton facilities. The second option is for Autoliv to ship out directly to the Nissan facilities. The third option is for Nissan to come pick up the materials and let them handle the shipping to these facilities. And then the fourth option is the dual fulfillment option, which would have Nissan picking up certain supplies, kind of like the Honda model that was presented in the case, picking up certain supplies, namely the driver and passenger airbags, and shipping those to their locations while maintaining the rest of the lines in the current shipping process to the Olive Branch facility for 4 years. That being said, out of those 4, we recommend the dual fulfillment option and rethinking it again at the end of the 4-year contract. So, Christina will now continue with the analysis.
Okay, perfect. So we did 7 different analyses on this. We have a SWOT, zero, risk, financial, opportunity costs, future projections, and sort of an unknown factors analysis. An important thing to realize is that we realize that this is a limited presentation, and so we have included full details of each of the analysis in the appendix if we want to refer to that. Right. So we'll start off with a little bit of a SWOT analysis just of where Autoliv is currently. So some of the strengths that we identified, safety is very important to them, and quality in safety. That's a strength they have. Between manufacturing and shipping, that really helps save a lot of money and time. They tend to have really good supplier relationships. They help their suppliers continue to become better. They're on the leading edge of a lot of safety technology, And they're very agile, so very willing to change to fit whatever's needed. Some of the opportunities currently, there is the Takata recall, and so there's a great opportunity for a greater share of the market to be gained. In addition, there's a growing global market and a growing active safety market. So just in general, there's a growing market opportunity. Some of the weaknesses we identified, there's a high cost of labor here in Utah, and there are relatively low margins on the product. The suppliers have a lot of control just in their demand and everything. And then partially due to our location, there tend to be higher shipping costs because we are in Utah, shipping to locations all over the country. And lastly, a couple threats. New technology could potentially be a threat, as well as changes in consumer behavior. If the consumer decides to go in a completely different direction in the automotive industry, this could potentially have a great negative impact on the company. And there's always that threat of potential recalls. Next one, thanks. So for VRO analysis, so VRO, we covered the value, the brevity, imitability, and the organization of the current fulfillment operation. So we identified these six key competencies. And then overall, some of the main core competencies is the culture of the lean manufacturing and shipping, and that has to do also with the relationships with the suppliers, and then also the emphasis on safety and quality in the safety. Okay, so a little bit for our financial analysis. So here we've got the process cost comparison for each of the 4 different options that we have. So for our current process, where we go through cross-dock, given the numbers in the case, Autoliv is spending approximately $5.9 million every year to ship the Nissan product. Nissan is paying $6.6 million a year, again, from numbers in the case. So for our Autoliv direct ship cost, Nissan again will be quoted as, we're assuming they'll be quoted at the same price of $6.6 million. And then to find the direct ship cost, we took the given price that is to ship to the current cross-dock, and then added a little bit due to locations and stuff. So that's why it is a range, because we didn't have an exact number. So we're ranging from 5.5 million to 8.3 million. If we come down to this Nissan direct ship, Autoliv, we're assuming it's not going to do anything. As soon as the product leaves the shipping dock, it's in Nissan's hands. And then Nissan, again, we have the range. In addition, we added the cost of the initial investment in totes. So that's included in that range. For the last, dual fulfillment, which this is our recommendation, Autoliv is still going to be spending approximately $4.2 million getting part of the product to that cross ship warehouse. And then Nissan is going to be spending the 6.5 to 7.3 direct ship getting the rest of their product. And this also includes the cost of totes, which will be less than if they completely took over the direct ship cost. So we believe dual fulfillment will be the best because there is a potential for them to save money, and it will allow Nissan to have greater control over their supply chain and potentially create some more lean principles, apply more lean principles throughout it. And Emily will go on to the risk analysis.
All right, so in the case, I believe it was Melanie who asked, how do we analyze the risk? How do we measure the risk? And so that was something that we tried to do in our analysis. So we used a risk matrix that compared the likelihood of certain risk factors occurring against the severity of the consequence for those factors occurring. So if something had an extreme risk, or a 4 on our scale, that would be something that was very likely to happen and something that would have a major consequence if it were to happen. So we used 7 different risk factors, including one that was unknowns, to account for things that we might not be measuring. But the biggest ones were weather and stolen totes, things that were mentioned as we toured Autoliv 2 days ago. Then we did a weighted factor analysis to compare those options and did a comparative assessment to see which of the 4 options would change. And that's included in our appendix if you'd like to look at it in more detail for the question period. But what we took away from that analysis was that at the end of the day, the biggest difference will be that these changes will only shift the distribution of risk. They don't increase the risk overall for the 2 companies, they just shift the distribution between Nissan or Autoliv. And so should Nissan do the direct pickup option, take all of the ownership of the shipping, that will increase their own risk by 25%, which is pretty significant upfront. But if they go with the dual fulfillment option, they only take on about a 17% increase of risk, which is a little more manageable to start if that's something that they would like to take on. Overall, both options decrease risk for Autoliv because there's less that they have to manage because they give part of that over to Nissan. So the dual fulfillment option provides the best opportunity to manage the risk and to split the risk evenly between the two partners moving forward. We also did an opportunity cost analysis. Opportunity cost is another one that's a little bit difficult to measure, but we were able to see kind of what Autoliv would give up given the alternatives. So if Autoliv is to give up some of the ownership of their shipping processes, shift that over to Nissan, they do give up some control of their shipping processes, which increases a little bit of their risk. But overall, they will also have that potential loss of lane efficiency. So initially they have those potential costs and those potential losses, but we believe based on what we've seen with Autoliv systems and their ability to improve systems very quickly, that over the next couple of years, those risks will be minimized. We also wanted to look at what Autoliv gives up with their current process. So with the current process they also have an opportunity cost. And we believe that biggest opportunity cost is in their use of resources. Since they're expending a lot of resources to manage shipping, they are not using resources to do other things. And given the market shift toward autonomous vehicles, active safety systems, they could use more resources towards what the market demands as opposed to using their own resources towards shipping. It also improves their long-term capability to satisfy customers. Nissan clearly has stated for the last 3 years that they want to take on more ownership of their shipping. So that's what we would like to look at, is finding a way to satisfy that supplier relationship and keep that clean. At the very end of the case, there was also the question about the clean slate hypothetical. Moving forward, like, if we could start completely over clean slate, what would we do? And we think that this helps us to broaden our options. So as we take on new customers, if Autoliv is better at allowing customers to fully manage their shipping, then they have more options to take on more customers and to better supply those relationships moving forward. So that was what we thought with the clean slate and with the opportunity costs. We also did a few future projections looking at where the industry is going. Autonomous vehicles and active safety systems are core to what needs to be done. Given the projection here from the case, active safety systems are expected to grow 15 to 20%, while passive safety systems will only grow 4%. And so as Autoliv takes on significantly more of the market share, they will also take on more of that growth. And so it's important that they're prepared to satisfy the future demand as opposed to just the current demand. There's also significant organic growth that's coming from Autoliv just being a great supplier and people, different car manufacturers being willing to work with them, as well as the competitive market shift that was mentioned by Christina with the Takata recall. We also looked at some global projections. Over here, you can see from this chart some of the biggest growth in car demand is coming from those Asian markets. So we want to prepare for sustainable growth, and we know that growth in the different market shift will affect our future location selection for shipping, for manufacturing, for where we want to distribute our products as well. So looking forward, the more flexible we can be with our ability to set up different types of supplier relations and different types of fulfillment options will help us to serve a global market. We also wanted to recognize that there are several factors that we were unable to consider given the information in our case. So based on the information that we have, we're very confident in our recommendation. But we feel that before Autoliv goes forward with a decision, they should also consider the factors listed here, including safety stock, insurance costs, inventory storage, the cost that is increased with expedited shipping costs should that be taken on. So Autoliv and Nissan should work together to compare those factors as well before making a final decision. So that is the end of our full analysis. I'd like to turn it time to Reese to talk about our final recommendation.
Thank you. Let's get on to the final recommendation. So, given both the background of the relationship between Nissan and Autoliv, as well as the analyses that our team conducted, our final recommendation, as we've stated, is a dual fulfillment option between Nissan and Autoliv. Specifically, Nissan will take on direct shipping from Ogden with the passenger airbag and the driver side airbag SKUs, which accounts for approximately 31% of the volume that Autoliv is currently shipping to Nissan. So that's Nissan's side. For Autoliv, they are going to still handle the curtain airbags, and in 4 years, near the completion of the olive branch contract, they will need to reevaluate how the operations have linked out, how this has worked with the driver and passenger airbags, to determine if they would like to hand over those the remaining SKUs of the curtain airbags to Nissan, or if they should take back the driver and passenger airbags. Given our recommendation, here's how we would say to Autoliv for implementing and moving forward. First off, Nissan is going to need to make the initial investment to purchase totes and prepare shipping logistics, whether that's with CR England, who Autoliv is currently working with, or if they need to find their own logistics company. Autoliv, on the other hand, needs to adjust their manufacturing and shipping processes to accommodate for the new Nissan SKU allocations. Overall, we feel that the return on this decision is positive for both Autoliv and Nissan, as well as the overall relationship between these two companies. On Autoliv, it's going to reduce their long-term shipping risk by 28%, as well as take down their shipping cost by 29%. This opens up greater capacity to turn their attention to these active safety innovations, which, as we stated, is a growing market that's going to become more and more relevant and important as time goes on. For Nissan, this allows them to take over the control that they've been consistently asking for. They've looked at some of the other OEMs who are doing this direct shipping, and they want a piece of that. They want those little golden nuggets, as they said. So this will allow them to take on that direct shipping and give that control that they're looking for without handing over all of the risk all at once, so that they can make sure that they get their operations as lean as possible before evaluating whether or not they want to take over all the SKUs from Autoliv or go to a different option. Overall, this improves the relationship because Autoliv is very concerned with how Nissan and their other OEMs, how they work together. It's very important for all lean operations that the supplier relationship is strong. And Autoliv's done a great job of making sure that those relationships are sturdy. This will make sure that Nissan is getting what they've been looking for over the past 3 years, as we stated. And Autoliv will be recognizing Nissan's concerns and addressing those moving forward, as well as recognizing the opportunity that allows for Autoliv, if they hand over those shipping risks as well as the costs, that will allow Autoliv more time to focus on active safety as well as just leaning out their current operations. So that concludes our case. Thank you so much. Those are our analyses. We will now be taking time for questions.
You guys have 10 minutes for questions.
Okay, well, thank you. So, the question I guess I have is, no particular order. You guys have recommended that we, the dual fulfillment of the Nissan portion of that. You guys identified the driver and passenger SKUs. Can you just maybe elaborate on why those were chosen?
Yes, of course. So one of the biggest reasons is that that accounts for 31% of the volume of current Nissan. So because Nissan wants to take on more risk, we believe that this allows them to take over those SKUs without taking on the full, I think it was 27% risk all at once. So they're gonna, number one, they're going to be able to take on the risk like they're looking for in a smaller matter and be able to really get their operations leaned out before taking on all the SKUs at once, as well as we understand that based on the cost analysis, those SKUs were actually costing Autoliv the most amount of money, and so handing those over will reduce costs for Autoliv and Nissan, as well as while we're still maintaining the inflow from the curtain airbags.
Sorry, I'd like to add to that. Another one of the main reasons is to decrease the initial investment of Nissan because the totes cost a lot less for those types of airbags. So that was also something that we considered. It is, like I said, just a slightly smaller initial investment to see if it works.
Yes, so from if you choose the drivers and the passengers, what type of ship frequency did you guys calculate in this equation? Was it you guys looked at the volumes and Because the current model, each plant gets daily shipments, correct? So based on this new proposal, what, do you guys look at the frequency of deliveries for driver and passenger bags to each plant? Maybe just expand on how to do that.
Yeah, so we looked into that in as much detail as we were able to given the information in the case. There were a couple of factors that were missing, so we weren't able to do a full evaluation. But what we came up with was, given the dual fulfillment and Nissan taking over full direct shipment, they would still be able to get at least 2 or 3 times a week of shipments. So it would be a little less lean, but it would allow Nissan to take on what they're asking for to have that additional control.
Just adding to that, that would also mean that Nissan would have to carry a little bit more safety stock.
We do, that is why we do suggest that Autoliv is going to have to make some changes to their current shipping and manufacturing process. But one of the upsides of this is that with the lower volume, they're going to be able to work out those kinks, work out those lean operations with the driver and passenger SKUs so that they refine that process before taking on potentially all the curtain airbags as well. They'll have a much better process in place for that in the future rather than assuming all that risk at once and potentially leading to a big mess. So
It will expand Nissan's capacity.
Other questions?
You guys did a really good job of setting up the cost, right? This is the cost decrease of what we have. And I really like how you went through and evaluated a risk or a percentage you felt the risk. This is something that we're always trying to look at and trying to quantify. Did you look at anything as to what is the cost, right? We got a percentage of a risk, but what is the cost of that risk compared to what the cost of the savings in logistics?
Great question.
We were mostly only, given the time constraints, we only looked at comparative, like this is how much risk they have now compared to how much risk they would have given the other options. So I can actually go into our appendix and look at that. So let's see, it would be right here. So this was our weighted factor analysis from the previous one. So like a 4 is like extreme risk here because for time delays as well as for time delays, there's a significant possibility of that happening, and also the consequences are pretty severe. So that's why we gave that one a 4. So then you come up with that, and you have these different comparative totals. And then we compared these numbers to these numbers to see what the difference in the risk is. Because we didn't have access to the full financials, we didn't know how to compare those exact costs, given the information we had. If we had that information, we could have translated that into cost. But we can see that here is a 2% decrease for Autoliv, stays the same for Nissan, 28% decrease for Nissan, 24% increase, I had that backwards, 28% decrease for Autoliv, 24% increase for Nissan. So that's how we did it as a comparative analysis, because we didn't have the full access to the cost as is right now. Does that answer your question? Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
That's what I was just curious how to see the rest of that.
Does you have the breakdown? Do you have the breakdown that just shows the cost, as you said, shows your different options, right? As to what were those additional costs or factors that you were saying would increase or decrease?
We have that. Where do we have that?
Financials. So you're talking the financial costs?
Yeah, that if you're doing dual, right? So there were certain costs that you said would increase with Nissan, would decrease with Autoliv, like handling and different things. Do you have a breakout on that? Or?
We did not have a breakout in the slide. That was something that we considered when building in the information, was the fact that, as we stated, there are going to be certain things that Nissan will have to take on, such as the totes cost and other shipping logistics. We did make the assumption that given the size of Nissan, the relative shipping cost, just freight costs, would be pretty comparable, direct shipping to the Smyrna and Canton branches. That was just an assumption we made. So we did factor in, and the touch costs that would be reduced on Autoliv's side when they're no longer having to shift those pallets around within the olive branch, those were considered on the back end, but I think we did not include it in the presentation.
We also accounted for mileage, though, to get these final totals. When Nissan takes on some of the costs, we did some Google Maps and made sure we were accounting for the mileage to get those quotes more specific.
Any other questions? Perfect. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for letting us present on this case. We enjoyed it, and